Welcome, everybody, to the weekly edition for the most special, not your average investor show of the year. It is our yearly tradition, folks. It is where we go deep into the community to find out the top lessons learned. And we have with us a legend by himself. He's co-hosting the show with us because we realize we can't boil the ocean sometimes. You can't stop the tide from rising.
It's happening, bro.
You just can't do it. Today we have guest in-house star Lee MVP Bishop. Say hello, Lee.
Hello, everybody.
I'm your host, Pablo Gonzalez. With me, as always, the man that I affectionately like to call GC, because he's got the genius concepts, because he knows how to generate cash flow, because he's a great co-host, because his name is what, GC? What, Lee?
What GC? The Gregg Cohen.
Gregg Cohen. Tell him to say hello. Tell him to say hello.
Not Greg, say hello.
Hello, everybody. Fantastic to be with you today.
Today, we just want to share a little bit with everybody else. We talk about Lee as the MVP often. The reason why Lee has earned the moniker of the MVP is because you probably know this. Lee is the number one guy that gives his number out to people in the chat. He's the number one guy that will take anybody's call just to help them out. And we're gonna talk through kind of Lee's experience over the years of giving out advice and what people ask him and why he's been so valuable to everybody. We got a couple of surprise guests that we're gonna talk about, and then we're gonna reveal the weighted on top 10 attendee list of the year, which we will finish with. So Lee, let's just start with when people generally reach out to you, what's the first thing that they're asking about? Like what are they coming to you with?
I mean, honestly, they want to know what my experience is.
Okay.
And why am I such a supporter for JWB and why do I believe in what their message is and what they're doing in their product. And it's my experience has been outstanding. So when people call me, they say, well, have you had any mishaps? Have anything ever happened? I said, the JWB team takes care of all of the issues that we have for the house. So as my wife says, it really has been one of those things where it's a load of pressure off of her, just peace of mind is how she puts it. You know what I mean? When I said, well, we're going to be investing in JWB, she's like, what? And I said, well, we're going to take money out of the retirement money out of our 401k. She was like, what? And then I paid cash for the first house and bought 4 more, and she was like, slow down, Trigger. What are you doing? You've lost your mind.
Yeah.
And really, now that she's seen it and had a chance to experience it, she's like, oh my God, we should be telling everybody this. Which is why I
do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a no-brainer. I love talking about my experience and how it's been and what I've been doing, how it's affected me, how it's made my life better, where I'm having money and it's paying for, itself, and I'm not having to shell any more money out. But the biggest thing is not having to worry about when we did pull the trigger and said, we're retiring now, money's not eroding, right? I mean, that was the biggest issue. We wanted to see that there was going to be a continuous flow of income coming in and not eroding the capital investment. But really people call and they say, what's your experience? Come on. I see you're a bubbly guy. Come on.
Do you work for JWB?
I wear the swag and I love it.
No,
Oh yeah. They always say, so how much is JWB? What's your payroll? What's your employee ID? And I laugh. I said, well, it's Lee Bishop. I work for myself.
The B in JWB is not Bishop?
It's not Bishop. As much as I would like.
Yeah, me too.
But honestly, I love talking to people. Okay. That makes it easy for me.
Yeah.
And when people call me on the phone and they say, really, have you had any bad experiences or anything like that? Greg has always said, be honest, tell them whatever don't embellish, don't lie, tell them, and that's what I love about this guy. Cause he says, look, it's your experience. We can't script this stuff. Right. And my experience overall has been outstanding. So you know, the JWB team has been there for me on all of my issues with the houses. You know, it's not like me doing it myself
Yeah.
or something comes up and I go, God, I gotta figure out how to fix this. They come up with the solutions, you know, with vendors, and all I do is say yes or no. And, you know, where if it's an issue where the tenant has done something goofy, I still have to pay for it up front. But if there's proof that it really was something that they did,
Mhm.
then the tenant has to end up paying me back. But it's not like a maintenance fee that has to be paid to me. It is incorporated into the rent. So, you know, if
So
they,
the tenant pays it.
the tenant
resident.
pays, yeah, the tenant reimburses me, but
Mhm.
it's all part of the rent. You know, it's like rent goes up for $100 or whatever. They work it out. You know, JWB works it out so that it's a win-win-win for everybody, you know, which is awesome. You
Yeah.
know.
I'm just loving this, man. This is great.
Choked up. I'm sorry, man.
You know, honestly, you know what I was thinking as I'm hearing you speak? I'm like, I think, to really reach a level of success, we all need somebody to help us, right? Somebody who's really giving up their time, who's been in there has been at a level of success that is maybe a little bit farther than where you are, but it's where you want to be. And we have to have somebody who is generous and kind and just, I think it's just having that personality that you have, right? And I know that I had people in my life when I was starting out that I could look back and say they were my Lee. Like they were
Yeah.
kind and generous and they were above where I wanted to go as far as rental property investing. But out of the kindness of their hearts, they made themselves available.
Right.
And it wasn't because it made them any money. It was because they cared.
Right.
And so as I was listening to you speak, I was thinking about myself when I started 20 something years ago. And, for me, it was a number of people. One of them was Stan Merrill from Fortune Builders.
No.
Right.
And, and whenever I needed at that moment, it was well before I started paying Than a lot of money to learn his education, which I did, and it's been paid back many, many times over. He would just pick up the phone or he would call me and be like, hey, how's that going on? How's that going? Did that go the way you wanted? And that caring individual, we all need a Lee.
Right.
We need, this community has a Lee, and we're so thankful that we have a Lee.
Yeah.
But,
I mean,
we all need a Lee.
It's not like, I'll get one call and it'll be 10 minutes. It's always somebody that says, do you mind if I call you back? Or I'm going to have more questions after I talk to my wife or husband or whatever.
What do the follow-up questions look like, Lee?
Well, it's going to be like, if you were to do it all over again, would you do the same thing?
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, would there be anything different that you would have done?
Yeah.
Or did you have any regrets?
Yeah.
Now that you've done this, would you say, oh man, I wish I had, my regret
So
is,
people show up and they're like, is this legit? What is your experience?
yeah,
You're like, experience was good. Then they're like, all right, I'll be back. And then they call you again. They're like, whoa. Would you do it again? Is that really how it goes?
I'm not sure. I'm this far
Interesting.
from pulling the trigger, but I just need to know. And I told him my only regret is I didn't learn about this when I was 40. I had to find out about this when I was 50.
How old were you when you started, Lee?
It was 2017.
2017.
And I'm 62.
And you're 62. So
Like 5 years.
5 years.
Yeah. Calvert Hall math,
So 2017, 62. I'm trying to do math in public right now.
Yeah, no.
So it was 50,
look, he's doing 8.
54. So you started in your mid 50s.
Yeah.
And this was a retirement thing, right? Like you invested with retirement money.
With totally retirement.
People ask you about that part?
Yeah.
What do people misunderstand about the investing with retirement money?
So I don't think it's a misunderstanding. It's how do I get started?
Okay.
Really it's I mean, even with like Jen, who's fairy godmother, she can't be on the show today, but she was calling me up saying, what did you do to get started and how did it work and what did you have to do and was it a difficult process? And as long as you had somebody like me holding her hand, and then, like she got legal advice, because I'm not going to give legal advice, but she, when she found out what it was that the process was, and It's like the whole unknown, you know, if you don't know something,
Yeah.
who are you gonna talk to?
Yeah.
And so, you know, when people on the show see that, you know, I did it with them with retirement money, then they call me up and they say, what did you do? How did you get started? What was your first reaction, or what was your first step?
Mhm.
You know? So, but I was saying the people in the community don't have to pay. You
Yeah.
know, if they want somebody to give them a little advice, I can get them started. I can put them, you know, make them take their first step. Because you're not going to do it on your own.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The
Yeah.
big unknown is, what's the first thing I have to do?
Yeah.
You know, is it forming the LLC? And everybody's different. You know, you said, what is your first thing? I've talked to like 3 or 4 different people, and not more than that, but I mean,
Three or four.
there's like
100
3 or 4
people.
different ways of
Yeah.
of investing, you know, your 401k.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And certainly the first thing I had to do was set up the escrow account so that I have a proof of money going from my 401k into my solo 401k in my case. But
Yeah.
you know, I had to have a proof of where the money was going so I didn't have to get hit with a 20% and a 10% and giving my money away before I even spend it.
Yeah. GC, what do you
It's
think?
as simple as that.
What do you think about that first step piece?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of materials out there and
Yeah.
a lot of resources out there for folks who have the desire to learn about it, but there's still this leap of faith to like pick up the phone and talk to somebody.
Yeah.
And of course we're here at JWB to be that resource and
Right.
to do that. But you know what? Listen, we're a company, we're gonna sell you something. And at the end of the day, people, it is so nice to have another resource that is not inside JWB
Yeah.
that has been in your shoes. So I just think that, this is how people become successful. You have resources in different walks of life, maybe with different, relationships and whatnot, and we all come together around the idea of doing something really good for people.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's like when the water rises, all the boats rise, right?
Yeah.
You know, and honestly, and then when people get together and they talk about, man, I never would have done it if I hadn't talked to you.
Mhm.
That makes me feel great.
Makes
You
me
know, I
feel-
mean,
That's
that's like my benefit out of
Yeah.
the whole thing. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? When people say, I really appreciate you taking the time
Yeah.
to talk to me. You know,
Yeah.
I was talking to this guy in Alaska who said, I have this property, and as soon as I sell that, I'm going to be buying with JWB
Mhm.
because he's happened to stumble on the show. And it was one of those times where I put my phone number out there, and I didn't know him from dirt, you know.
Mhm.
And he calls me up and he goes, "Can I talk to you about investing with JWB? What do you really think?" You know, and this was like multiple. I said, "Listen, next time you call, make sure your wife is available." You know, because I don't want to have to say it 3 or 4
Yeah.
times.
That's funny.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. I mean, as you're talking about it, I'm like, I feel the same way of like, I wouldn't have done it if it wasn't for you to this Zoom chat. Right?
Well,
Like
yeah.
for me, it was like hosting this
We were
show.
beating them pretty
Yeah,
good.
it was all of you guys, right? Like it was like hosting
That's
this
funny.
show, seeing everybody in the Zoom chat, just continuing to ask me like, when are you getting started? When are you reading Rich Dad Poor Dad?
Yeah.
What are you doing with your money? Kind of thing. It was like, it's that whole you surround yourself with people and you just kind of like become like them, right? Like
Well, after a while, you say, "Oh, these people were successful," and
Yeah.
they're, you know, more people were coming on to the show,
yeah,
who were clients already, you know, and it's always a lot of the things that say, how many houses do you have, right? And it's
Yeah.
not really about how many houses; it's how do you protect yourself from just having.
Mhm.
If you just have one, you're vulnerable, and
Yeah,
people
yeah.
that have one, maybe two, can still get into that. I'm exposed.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
either one house gets vacant and it's not paying for both of them, or you know, I mean, there's reasons why you want to have, in my case, 5 houses, but at least have 3. You know,
Yeah.
so you can build in that security
Yeah.
in your retirement account. In my case, most people don't have to worry about stuff, but
Makes sense.
Yeah, I think I think each plan is so different, but we have to take that idea of like minimizing vulnerability And that has to be a part of the plan starting
It has
out,
to be,
right?
yeah.
So like if you're investing in your retirement accounts, we absolutely can never get into a situation where there
You're
is a big
pulling money.
expense
Yeah, right.
that isn't free and able to be liquid in that retirement account because
Or that you don't have reserves
or they
to
don't have
cover it.
reserves, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you know, there's so much more than just the selling of
Right.
a rental property for a JWB client. It is a holistic plan because this can be a beautiful thing, but if you don't do it well, if you don't do
Or
it
if you
with
don't have
intentionality,
people advise you
Right.
correctly.
who have done it thousands of times,
Yeah.
you can be one of those stories where people dip their toe into the
I don't know.
asset
I don't know
class.
why anybody would do this. You know,
Yeah,
they're the
and
ones.
then they don't have a good experience, and you know they might just be just as loud as Lee the opposite way, like, oh, why would I ever do this, right? You know,
Right.
so there has to be intentionality, and that's what I love about what we do for people is no plan is the same for each individual. The retirement account is perfect for you, but at the end of the day, there's core tenets to building a good plan, which is, of course, maximizing the opportunity and the growth, but protecting against vulnerability.
Exactly.
Right. And
Yeah.
and this is an asset class that absolutely can do that when you do it the right way.
Yep. Yep.
Lee, I want to get to the top 10 attendees, but you
Yeah.
mentioned
Let's
something
giddy
of
up.
the things. You mentioned something that people ask you around, would you do it again?
Yeah.
And I want to ask you that question. What do you answer to folks? But I would, with the caveat of, would you do that again today? Right? Like you were 54 when you started.
Yeah.
You're now 8 years later,
62.
and you've reached retirement.
Right.
Your retirement life seems to be pretty comfortable. You have all the cash you need. You're making moves. You're buying homes in Galveston, Texas, by the beach. Right?
Yeah. We are.
If you were a 54-year-old Lee right now in 2025, would you do it again?
Yeah. Yeah. I would have done it if I was 30 and knew about it, but I didn't know about it.
Yeah.
You know, at 62, I would certainly, if I were saying, okay, I'm getting ready to retire, and my wife is saying, hey, we got these, accounts that are retirement accounts. I wonder if, when you're talking to your guy and he says, you're at the 98th percentile, so you can live the way you want to live now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we talked about this during the Kelly Barabon show.
That's right. Talk about it.
But it was one of those things where you say, right now, I only have 2 weeks off. And I'm going to have 50,
I get where you're going. Yeah.
52 weeks off,
My
right?
expenses are going to go up.
I mean,
purchases are going to go up.
yeah, right? Yeah.
Support this, right?
If I'm drinking this many bottles of wine in a night.
So explain that decision. Explain that you mentioned that idea of like, you did this because you didn't want the asset to diminish while you were still living off of it. Explain that piece.
Yeah. So as long as you're having rent, that's either paying for the asset and you're still having positive cash flow and you're still looking at the 5 profit centers, you can borrow against money if you need it, and that's what we did to buy a house. We borrowed against one of our assets that was paid for, and we were able to put down 25%, down on this house, and we're able to comfortably move right into it, and all of the houses aren't paid for yet, but through the C3X, that has to be put on hold for a second, until everything gets approved for a mortgage, at 62.
Explain what he's explaining right now, GC.
Yeah. So the first thing, I didn't know that the
that's
profits
cool.
from your JWB portfolio provided the down payment for your new house in Galveston. And that's really cool. That's
awesome,
really
right?
cool. So we talk about, achieving an outcome, right? It's nice to make money, and that, at the end of the day, that's what we hope to do here, but we hope to do a lot more than that, which is to achieve an outcome. So it's really cool to know that you guys are able to move to where you wanted to go and to know that your JWB investments paid for it. But what Lee is also talking about when he says things like C3X, again, this whole planning and this intentionality about how we build a portfolio for you is not just about how to build the buying part of your plan. At some point, you will get the right number of assets in your portfolio, and then it will be about how do we strategically help you pay down the debt so that you can maximize your cash flow, maximize, speed up the date of financial freedom or whatever that outcome is that you're achieving, C3X is one of those strategies. It's all about strategically paying down your loans for you, and it can pay down the same amount of debt in a much faster way. So that's something that our team helps our clients do, and it's a whole, the
It's a
planning never stops.
scientifically proven.
It's scientific, yeah.
It's
It's so simple too when you sit
Yeah,
down, right?
yeah,
It's so simple to execute. But again, if you haven't met with somebody, if you hadn't had a Lee in your life to even put this in your head, like we are hopefully right now, and if you hadn't talked to a team who's done this thousands of times, you might just go around just either buying the wrong number of assets, or even after you buy the right number of assets, just paying them.
Or pay for 30 years.
Yeah, paying for
Right.
30 years. And you would, I mean, I don't know what the math is, but 5 to 7 years you probably could have shaved off by doing it strategically. So,
Right. Right.
yeah. So there's a whole lot of fun stuff that we get to do with this portfolio.
And beyond the C3X, what you didn't talk about is like the idea that you're able to take a loan out of one of your homes
Yep.
that you still own
Right.
to go purchase the home that you want to live in. And like you said, the asset doesn't go down, right? Like you didn't have to take a lump of cash out of your stock market portfolio, pay taxes on it,
Yeah.
lose the ability to gain appreciation from it to go buy this house. You still own these homes that are paying you cash flow. You're able to take that out, buy a new home that you're going to live in, like a stone's throw from the beach. And now
2 minutes.
yeah, right. And now, like, and you still keep that thing, right? Like you still have that thing working for you. That's the whole not average way of seeing retirement, right? Like these things don't go away. They continue to do better. These outcomes that you can create with rental property investing, one of the greatest outcomes is this flexibility of continuing to hold the asset and continuing to like have optionality versus like having to have like a terrible tax event and losing part of your net worth in order to take a decision, which I think is pretty incredible. You ready for the top 10 attendees list? There's some surprises, right? At 10, this is no surprise. Legendary, the first family, patriarch and matriarch, Ken and Carolyn Moline coming in with 49 shows attended.
40, and how many shows do we have total? Just to set the scene, I think we had 75.
Yeah, something like
75 shows.
Yeah,
So
that's
we're
right.
talking about, what was the number?
49 to 10.
49.
49 to 10.
50 out of 70 calls.
Yeah,
Man,
yeah.
That
That's
is
awesome.
that is incredible. That is investing in your community. That's investing in your
Yeah.
education.
Ken's still getting value.
Ken's still getting
Oh,
about. By
yeah.
the way, Ken Story, legendary. We got to
That's
bring him
awesome.
back on for another show. We got to bring Ken on at least once,
Yeah.
twice
Yeah, I
a
love
year,
the
kind of thing, right?
Oh, yeah.
Ken started in his 80s.
Story.
Was in a pension retirement, took a jumbo reverse mortgage on his house, bought a house like straight up cash here in Jacksonville, then refinanced that house, bought multiple houses, and I think you increased his cash flow in retirement by like double
Right.
through this advanced strategy. When I hear people say it's too late for me to start in real estate, I'm
It's
like,
never.
listen to Ken Moline.
Yeah, and you
Yeah,
want to know something
right.
similar? The big outcome that Ken wanted, and Ken and Carolyn, was they wanted to be able to retire and stay in their home, in their community. And if they didn't have this strategy and this investment, it was very likely they were going to have to sell their house to go and move somewhere else in order to be able to retire the way they wanted. So it's all about that outcome.
Yeah. All right. The next three names are kind of surprising, right? We've got number 6 coming on in a second, but 9, 8, and 7. 9, Chris Brewer with 52 times.
All right.
8, Ronald Thwing with 53 times.
All right.
And Carla Hinton with 55 times. These are 3 names that have never checked in
Yeah.
on the roll call.
How
They're
cool is that?
sneaky.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
sneaky.
You are sneaky. Sneaky. If you're here, we'd love it if you checked in the chat right now. Thank you so much for coming. I'm dying to
Yeah,
get to know you, right?
congratulations
Like
to
I'm
them. That's
I'm dying to
awesome.
get to know you. If you want to check in on the roll call, if you want to come on the show and like tell us
Give
about
a
your
nickname.
experience,
Make a friend.
I want to give you a nickname, right? So I'm just it just goes to show that the impact of the show, right? Like we know all these names, we know all these folks, and yet like there are people that are part of this community that haven't even raised their hand yet.
It's amazing.
So it's just
It is
incredible,
amazing.
incredible.
That's
So
crazy.
Carla Hinton, Ronald Thwing, and Chris Brewer, just really pumped that you make a habit out of being here. So thank you for being here. Would love to hear from you. Up next is a guy that everybody's heard from.
Yes.
He is we call him the ringmaster around here. Drew Barnhill. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Glad to be here, Pablo. Thanks for bringing me up. I'm so excited for this weekend. I look forward to this every year.
Dude, I can't wait to see it, man. You were the original, you and Jen were the original Not Your Average Investor Show meetup when Jen happened to be in Atlanta. You
Right.
said that you were in Woodstock, you got together, and now you are top 56 times.
56. That's
56
Way to
times.
go.
I don't remember missing that many, but I know I hadn't missed the last two because I've been in India and I worked, the last couple of weeks, and I had missed a couple too. But I didn't know I missed that many. But that's all right. I try to.
You're a traveling man. You're over there partying in Margaritaville. Sometimes you miss on the show.
I am, and the margarita was awesome. In fact, if anybody wants to go down there and I can show you around Margaritaville on Sunday or whenever you're gonna stick around or anything like that, yeah, would love to do that. It is an awesome place here.
Love it. Drew, what is your kind of like, you've come to the show 56 times. You're a guy that gets on the phone with people all the time, right? What is your biggest takeaway from the show these days? Like, what keeps you coming? What are you learning? What are you seeing out there that you want to share with folks?
Well, the biggest aspect for me, quite honestly, is the sociability of it. And I get to meet so many people through you guys, so many wonderful people. And I love that. I'm kind of like a people person. In fact, that's why my company sent me to India, because they said you're great at building relationships and, kind of thing. And I love talking this kind of stuff. Another thing that, people have a hobby. Some people, do landscaping. Some people do woodworking. My hobby is playing with money. I mean, I'm an accountant by trade, and I love doing that. So I like to play with a lot of different financing strategies and different things along that line. And one thing I will say to everybody, you can't say this about the stock market, but you can say it about real estate. Real estate in this country, there's never been a 10-year period where that real estate didn't appreciate at least some. You got to go to 20 years from the stock market for that. And also, real estate set up right will pay for itself that entire 10 years. You can set it and forget it, literally, especially with JWB. They're a great team to have on your side and manage everything for you, and it's so easy. And at the end of the 10 years, you look up and, wow, okay, now I've made all this money. And I've not only done that, but I've done it with leveraging. And leveraging is the key to everything in real estate. You can certainly leverage in the stock market, but you take downturns in the stock market, you get something called a margin call. And those are never fun. I've had those before. And you don't get a margin call in real estate because you're literally dealing with fixed rate loans. And that's something that we have in America, and we should all be grateful for that. It's the only country in the world that has 30-year fixed rates. Even in Canada, they have 30-year loans, but they reset every 5 years, along these lines. So as an American, that's a great tool to take advantage of. 30-year fixed rates, just an amazing thing. And like you say, rents go up every year, but that payment stays the same, except of course for insurance and taxes and all like that. But those are typically marginal. You're not, I've had someone go up, you're talking about $30, $50, $60, $70 a month kind of thing, and all on that line, it can happen. And that's an extreme environment. You don't typically have that. And I'll say one thing on insurance, one thing we have, it's going to get better in Florida with the changes that we've had to the laws and everything like that. There are companies starting to come back to Florida. So I think we've had our shots in Florida as far as the insurance rates go. And one thing I will add to that, people think about Florida, they think about hurricanes. But if you study the last 100 years of NOAA weather data, Jacksonville actually has the same hurricane risk for damage as New Jersey does. It's in a unique little pocket there that typically there's only been one direct hit from the Atlantic in the last 100 years. Now, there were 66, I think, from Hurricane Nora. So it typically does not happen. When we get hurricanes over here, they typically come across the state and they have to go through a lot of land, and we're typically not more than a tropical storm by the time they get here. So don't think about Florida, because the Carolinas, Virginia, and all these places have much greater hurricane risk than Jacksonville.
Drew with a bunch of takes. Drew with financial engineering takes, insurance takes, hurricane takes. What'd you think about that, Lee?
I think it's awesome.
What do you got on that?
Although I did talk to somebody else today about hurricanes and whether or not I had to worry about them, and he said negative not for 100 years.
Yeah, well, we'll have
Right.
Whitney will be at the summit, so everybody will be able to ask her all the insurance questions. GC, what'd you hear in there that you want to comment
I
on?
feel like I just want to hang out with Drew. I mean, I've always loved hanging out with Drew. I think every time I hang out with him, I'm like, man, this guy is like in my head. Like we both we love to financially engineer
guys are
things,
financial
right?
engineers,
We
yeah.
love creative strategies. He gets to be a little bit more creative these days than I do because, he's managing his own money. I got to manage, others that might not always, have the same risk profile as Drew does. But at my heart, Drew, like that's where I started. Like I bought houses on credit cards, right? Like and there's just like the thrill of like figuring out how you're going to do this in a not average way is something that I know Drew and I can absolutely relate to each other on. So yeah, man, I just can't wait to see. And I just appreciate you being so much of a part of this community because I think early on when we had the first meetups, which were like 10 of us getting together, 20 of us getting together, I just remember Drew being there and just being like, I instantly knew that guy was going to tell me exactly what was on his mind. And he was going to tell me the truth. Right. And there's other people that, fluff this or fluff that or whatnot. And I just always loved being next to Drew because I knew I was going to get exactly what he thought. And I think that's such a rare trait in this world. So I can't wait to get a little bit more of that this weekend, buddy.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like I said, I look forward to this every year, and I like that. I get to see my old friend Lee and hang out and everything like that, and Pablo and his karaoke, and it's becoming an event that I truly look forward to in my life, and just talking with the people. I mean, I'm just a person that I love people. I love talking to people, and especially figuring things out. But the biggest thing you can tell me is that there's a deal here, and it cannot get done. That's a challenge. That you throw it to me a challenge. Okay, I'll figure out a way to get it done. And that's what I love to do.
You're coming to the summit. You're going to ask Drew, how do I get the deal done? He's the guy to go to the how do I get the deal done, right?
There's always a way. There's always a way. Yeah.
Always a way. All right, brother. We'll see you on Friday, my friend.
See you soon.
Tied with Drew at 56. We've got number 5 and number 4. Number 5, Mike Foster.
Oh,
we all know
Mike Foster.
We all know Mike Foster. Number 4, I've never heard of this guy. Lee Bishop. You're number 4, Lee. How does that feel?
I've had some issues.
You've had some issues. You've had some issues. You've had some issues, my friend.
You're in the top 5. How about that?
You're in the top 5. 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 Number 3.
Yeah.
Anybody? Any guesses? 58 times.
I don't remember.
The Shaman.
Oh, Nadeem Shah.
Shah.
Right.
Nadeem Shah.
Nadeem.
Dogs. You
Yeah,
beat me.
I feel about
What's
that.
that?
Beating you.
Oh,
Yeah.
got beat by the show, man.
You guys gonna have to fisticuffs this weekend. If you guys are hanging
I
out.
have to step up my game.
I want to see you guys arm wrestle this weekend. Is that cool?
Oh, he
Is that
beat
cool? He beat you. He beat you fair and square.
Tough guy.
Number 2, 59 times. Gerard Wendling.
All right.
Gerard, who we call out, doesn't always.
Really?
Yeah. That's didn't see that coming.
There have been some surprises.
There's been some
Right? I
surprises.
feel like last year when we did the top 10 list, we sort of had an idea, at least in the beginning, at least near the top.
Yeah.
This year, it's really nice to see some new names.
It's nice to see some new names. We want to have you all on the show, right? Like we want you to show your voice, share it as much as you want. Numero uno. Any guesses who numero uno is, guys?
I think I know.
I'm drawing a blank.
I
think I know.
yo no sé, but it is el gran amigo Bill Shields desde Duval joining us live. Billy Shields, get in here in the middle, Bill Shields. Get in here in the middle. Bill Shields, give us a buenas tardes desde Duval. Buenas tardes, amigos. Desde Duval. Bill, you know what I love? You know what I love about this right now is that you're staying at Bill's house.
I am saying it.
You guys have become legit good buddies. Tell us about the adventures of Bill and Lee.
Oh God.
How did that start?
Wow. How did that start? It started with the show.
Yeah.
And then last year at the summit,
Yeah.
we were talking and we were in town
Yeah.
and we invited them over. We knew that there were some issues going on with Robin and we said, hey, we're going to make dinner. We brought some Italian food down and they came over and had dinner with us that first night. My wife is going, what are we doing? We're taking dinner?
I'm seeing a trend here, Lee.
this guy. I'm not a good finish guy, you know. But they came over and we fell in love with them. They stayed for about 6 hours and we got to know them, and we became brothers. I'm telling you, it was cool. It was really neat.
Tell us from your perspective, Bill. So did y'all invite him down to the river house and stuff like that? You guys have done like a couple
Not
things
yet.
together.
Yeah. Well, hey, you haven't been to the, no, I haven't
No,
invited
no.
you to
We
the,
haven't.
Well, you guys
hung
hung out
this
like
summer.
Orlando or something like that?
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
in Orlando they have the, what do you,
We had a
open
timeshare.
right?
Yeah.
Last June.
Yeah.
And he invited us down for that. So we spent a week with him in June down there.
Oh, yeah.
By the pool.
They got to know us.
Drank different
Yeah.
Yeah.
liquid libations.
It went
Pretty
from a
much
day
it.
to a
We
week.
hung out, we drank and we were married. Yeah, we married.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, the last year is, yeah, because Robin's mom had just passed away.
Yeah.
And she was living with us we had an RV that we could set up in our backyard for her and her dad. He had passed away a year before. But so anyway, she was living there. We were taking care of her, and she passed away like a week before the summit.
A couple of days.
Yeah, it was like, we're just happened. And she was like,
I don't want to do it, she
Yeah.
said.
like, well, they're great people. They're gonna, they got dinner waiting for us. We can drink a little wine, eat a little Italian food,
And by the way, can you bring a pot?
yeah,
So
we can bring a
boil
pasta. This Airbnb we're staying in doesn't have a pot we can cook in, so we brought a big jumbo pot over, and next thing you know, we're becoming friends. So
Yeah.
I love
it's
it,
awesome.
man.
Yeah, it's great.
That's what this community is all about, man.
Yeah.
Like these friendships are so real, right? Like this to me is like everything that we're playing for. Like the KPIs of this community are like how many folks are taking trips together, right?
Yeah,
Like, I love it, man. You know Bill for a while, right?
I was gonna say, I mean, Bill knows my family real well.
Yeah.
He knows my house real well. Bill is a draftsman, and he does a lot for JWB for a lot of our projects and our house builds and whatnot.
Yeah.
Bill actually drafted the plans for my own personal house as well. So I have so many reasons to be thankful for Bill. But yeah, I mean, it's just it's really fun to see, our relationship grow. Because you tend to have relationships that, like we're more of acquaintances before the show, but
Right.
but now we're real friends. And I think it's not just creating new friendships. I think the show, and it's funny because I think actually investing has helped me get closer to maybe even some of the family members that I have that, maybe I didn't get to talk to as much. I started to invest, and now I get to talk to them much more often. We have kind of like a common thread there. And it's been great to get closer to you as a friend too. I mean, I think back in the day, I was like, oh, I'd ask my business partners, hey, I need plans for my house. Who should I go to? And they're like, oh, go to Bill. But I didn't know Bill.
Right.
But now I know Bill.
Now I know Bill.
And Bill knows the show because what was it, 61?
61.
61.
There you go.
61.
What?
So
Numero uno.
yeah,
Uno.
it's been pretty awesome.
And Bill, you are also a real estate investor, right?
Yeah.
What is your kind of like track record with real estate investing?
Well, I started working with JWB in 2015,
Yeah.
like drafting the plans, Jessica and then Lisandro and people like that way back in the day. And I kind of started hearing mainly through Lisandro, because we communicate a lot about the plans for the downtown Riverside houses and the things we were doing. And he would talk about the investing. I'm like, yeah, I always wanted to do that, but it's like, just was never in a financial position to get involved, you know what I mean? And then, so I just kept doing that. And then the show started in 2020. And it's like, I started listening to that, like as soon as I found out about it. And then, y'all started talking about, I think you were talking about Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, and at about that same time, we're going to High Springs kayaking with some friends. So my wife's like, oh, good kayaking. So we got the audio book and we're listening to it. I'm sitting going, like, yeah, turn to the cornholio or something. But so we were both excited. So we're, long story short, we're kayaking in High Springs in the Santa Fe, and there's this lot right by the High Springs boat ramp. We're like, honestly, it was like I was interested in JW investments. At the same time, I was like, I want to make money now because I'm like old and I want to retire. So I'm like thinking more cash flow. So
Sure.
I'm thinking, okay, well, so we found this lot. It's like out of the flood zone. And how can this be out of a flood zone? It's right by the river, but it was up on a bluff and it was just sitting there. I'm like, I gotta buy this lot. So next thing you know, that was our first investment. So we bought the lot, and it was a long 3-year process. It was very painful. I've shared a little bit with that with you. We had the best contractor, and ended up basically finishing half of it. And our,
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
we were upside down on our construction loan, and a lot of things happened, and we put a lot of money into it, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and we're proud of it. And, but it kind of got a hold of us financially. So we've been
Yeah.
kind of dealing with that. We finally finished it in 2023, and it's been successful as an Airbnb, but you know, it could be more successful, but it's been good. And we also had a friend that has like a co-op storage thing. They're building storage units in Montana. So we were good friends with them, and he showed me the returns on the first one they did. I'm like, okay, well, let's try that. Cause I'm thinking, you know, the whole in my mind, my wife's mind, we're like, well, how can we get, you know, returns coming sooner,
Yeah.
you know, instead of the long haul, which is probably smarter, but that was our mindset. I could hit any day now. So I think in 2025, things are going to start. It's going to be a good year because
Freeing up.
yeah, we're gonna free up, and then we're also building kids for our houses. Or
Other way
houses for our
around.
kids.
Yeah.
You're building kids.
Kids for our houses.
That's Robin know.
We got houses, we're gonna make some more kids. I don't know if it's possible, we're gonna try. But so we've got a lot going on
Yeah.
and a lot of good stuff, but which is kind of, you know, that's kind of where we're at.
I think that's
Yeah.
awesome that he's building houses for his kids. Do you know how many people would give something else to, you know, I mean, that's
I could build them and
huge.
sell them, but like we kind of just felt like we wanted to set them up, you know,
Mhm.
it's like get them a leg up, and
And
that's
they're
been hard
still
too.
young, right?
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
still
27 and 30.
shoot, right?
Yeah.
I mean, to start out in life
I love that.
with parents that care enough to say, you know, I have the ability to help them. That's awesome. I'm in love with that. That's just, you know.
I share the same desire for my kids too, and for other family members that I have, and it's
They're a little young yet.
mine are young, but you know mine. They're all. You saw my daughter last year. She's quite the little investor. But I love the idea of giving homes to kids or for future generations too, because it's not just the financial thing. It's such a beautiful little business in itself. And it forces, it's easy to understand. I can explain to my daughter or my son, hey, somebody is renting this home. They're going to pay rent to you, right? And then I can help them understand, well, there are expenses that come along with it. We have to pay money to do this. And then there's tough decisions like, do we spend the money to do this today, knowing that it will cost us less in the future or that it will raise more income? So it's like this beautiful, not just financial thing, but it's this beautiful education, like business in itself that I really love. And I think that both of those things really help our future generations, you know?
Your
Bill, I
daughter's
reached out to
gonna
you
be
and
a
I was
kicker
like,
and a mover in
Bill,
it.
you broke my model. Like I think about you a lot, right? Because I was telling Gregg from like day one, I'm like, Gregg, if we're gonna do something really cool with marketing, if we make people best friends, everybody will invest.
I do remember you saying that, Pops.
Yeah, I did say that. And I feel like it's worked a lot, right? Like it's worked a lot. But we sit here, I feel like you guys are really good buddies. You're the #1 attendee, and you haven't bought anything with JW. I'm still super pumped that you've like come into my life and like you're like a super fan of the show. But like it's amazing all the externalities that come out of this exercise, right? Like it's like all these different walks. And I guess I would just say, like you just mentioned this idea of like you were looking for short-term cash flow. You had some real reasons, right? Like you're like, this thing's gonna add to my lifestyle, you know, this High Springs house, right? Like I can't argue with that. I love the Santa Fe River. And this other stuff. Like, how would you, you know, like if you were to go back to that was what, like 2020?
Started in 2020, 2020 to 2023 for various reasons, delays and
Yeah,
deal
yeah,
with
yeah.
Alachua County. But yeah, so we purchased a lot, I think at the end of 2020.
Yeah.
We finally got purchased
Yeah.
it. Yeah. So there, yeah.
What's same question for Lee? Like if you were to do it over again, would you have done the same thing? Would you have thought a little bit differently? Like what's the lesson to take?
Yeah, I mean, we might have just took a deep breath. I mean, we were like, all right, sounds like a great idea. My wife loved the river. Be cool to have a second home / Airbnb.
Someplace to go for vacation.
Yeah, that
right?
kind of thing.
You know.
But in hindsight, it would have been better probably to get some turnkey rentals through JWB just because I mean, you look at the appreciation we
Yeah,
had
you could
of
have
those two.
refinanced
You'd be
those out,
nuts.
right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
and hindsight's always 2020, but yeah, it would have been a lot easier
Yeah.
We basically spent a year and a half driving to High Springs every weekend. 'Cause we had to finish that house because it's like you can't
And
do
that was
anything
you
with a half-built house.
That was you doing
Yeah,
it,
so,
right?
yeah.
It wasn't like.
Yeah, me and my
you know,
wife, my
oh,
kids.
God.
Robin's brother, Mike, he's like jack of all trades. He saved us. He did so much stuff and helped us with so many things. But yeah, I think that would definitely be a more streamlined path to have taken.
Yeah.
But we are where we are, and things are looking good coming up this year. That's all I'll just say that.
But you are eventually gonna get
Oh, yeah.
into
Oh, yeah.
the turnkey.
I mean, I like the build, the build and sell idea, I like the
might
build
have
to
to
rent
think.
idea. So we're gonna do both, I think. So
And I think it's easy, to poke fun at you a little bit here, and we appreciate you being a good sport about it. I think that's incredible. But I just really I think your path is very similar, and maybe it's a little bit more, call it high profile now, you're a little bit more visible because
Right.
you attended 61 shows, and but I think everybody has probably gone down some type of path. I think about people in our community that came to JWB as their second or third attempt at getting into rental property investing or real estate in general. And so I know that you have a lot of folks that are walking that path. I've made a lot of mistakes, right? Like if you can go back, I mean, think about where I started in 2006, and I went all in on all forms of real estate at one time, happened to find that turnkey rental properties, and building that rental property portfolio was the one thing that worked. But there was a litany of other things that did not work, that I lost a lot of money, and I spent a lot of time, and I called in a lot of favors from people that loved me to help me, get to the finish line. And
But you also had a lot of time to reestablish.
right.
And we're talking about geriatric generation.
Yeah, I think you guys
you ain't getting no younger.
doing quite well. And you got to have friends around you that poke fun at you, or else, I mean, this the journey.
Exactly, right?
Yeah, that's what friends do, right?
That's what friends do. That's what friends do.
Yeah.
Ah, man, I tell the story all the time of we started this thing January 2020. By December 2020, we're having like a fan appreciation show. And to think we're here in 2025, this is our 4th fan appreciation show. Like all the stories that have come out of it, all the legit friendships that have like come out of this. And now we are on our 4th summit, and we know what we're doing. That's weird. Like I was talking to Greg this morning. He's like, man, we haven't, like all the times that we've done this. And I'm like, yeah, Greg, we're becoming an event company, man.
All
Like
the time.
this is not our first rodeo anymore.
It's not.
Like the amount of preparation and the amount of seeing around corners and the experience that we're curating for folks this weekend. I think you guys are going to be like really wowed by how far just like it's all come. And like to think that we got 100 folks coming here to see each other. So anyways,
I'm excited about it. All the way down here, 12-hour drive, I was going, man, it's gonna be fun.
Well, it's unlike anything that folks have seen before in the single family rental space. If you invest time to learn about this asset class, you don't get this with the backdrop of an operator who has invested over $100 million in a downtown and is showing you what that downtown looks like today and where it will go. And you get to meet the people that are controlling billions of dollars, and then connecting the dots for what's this going to mean for your
That's
5
gonna
rental
affect
properties.
me, right? Yeah.
And Bill's future JWB rental properties. So it's going to be unique and a ton of fun.
yeah, I'm just grateful for all of it. There's somebody in the chat that checked in under the phone, so I don't know who you are. It just says not your average guest, asking if we're more long-term rentals or short-term rentals, and if we're going to go over inventory. Today wasn't for that. Today was a celebration of the community. It is long-term rentals, workforce housing in Jacksonville, Florida. Next week we're going to have a case study, and you're going to really see kind of like these outcomes that you can create with this workforce housing stock here in Jacksonville. So sorry if you showed up to like the one show a year where it's really just a party, but like you can't manufacture this stuff. I think this idea of community, the fact that we had 100 people showing up today in the chat, like being part of this, that we get 100 folks that show up every single week, like 80 of them are return people, right? Like just like the fact that we've been able to do this, the fact that folks show up week after week, just so grateful that you take an hour out of your day to be here. You guys coming down here, spending time in studio, being on the show. I'm just really grateful, and I'm really grateful for you, Lee, right? Like you
I love crashing the show.
You are the
and
MVP.
disrupting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like your craziness and your
Yep.
rambunctiousness and your laugh and your stories have really made it all, man. But your support is really everything, man. So
Yeah,
thanks for being the MVP,
I
man.
wouldn't have it any other way. I just, really believe in the message and the business, and you guys have really done something special here. And between you and Pablo pulling this whole group together, that's special too, So it's like the cherry on top of the sundae,
I appreciate it.
I like it, I show up because I still get, I say almost every week I get a nugget. I call it a golden nugget.
Mhm.
I always get something out of the show, and it's always like in the chat.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Somebody
yeah.
will be throwing
Yeah.
something out there, and I'll
Mhm.
be going, "Well, damn, I didn't know that,"
Mhm. Yeah.
So I'm always learning too,
Yeah.
and I'm not even in the business anymore. Jane said, "You had heart issues. We're retiring," and I still get stuff out of the show. I'm loving it. So I appreciate
Well,
it for that.
means the world to us, having folks, believe what you believe, I think is like the greatest gift as an entrepreneur. And I think this show has been my latest entrepreneurial venture. It's been Pablo and I's entrepreneurial
It was
venture.
the birth of my entrepreneur.
Right. And
Yeah.
to have people believe in what you're doing and where you're putting your time and energy is such a gift. So
Right.
love you guys. Appreciate you. Can't wait to share it all with everybody this weekend.
Any
Yeah.
advice for folks before this weekend, before the next show?
Don't
Be
be average.
See you on the
See ya.
summit.